Everyone, and thank you for joining us for our Tuesday webinar class here for the Lunch and Learns. We have a new guest that's going to be teaching a class today, but before I invite her up, I'm going to run through just a couple of quick announcements. We've got some new events coming up this quarter for you guys, trying to get some fresh themed events, make them fun, get you guys out to our offices. So real quickly, going to run through those. All right, so our first event is the Self-Directed IRA Social. If you have attended our $1 trillion investment mixers in the past, we have rebranded those to the Social. So these are in-person events. We host them in every city. The first Tuesday of the month, we have it in Houston. The second Tuesday, it is in Austin. And that third Tuesday is in Dallas. So we do try to get some in-person events as well as our webinars to kind of generate that networking, give you guys some fresh speakers in all of your cities. So register for those. These are free to attend, and we do have beer, wine, a little bit of food at all these as well. Our next event is our 3-hour CE for realtors. So if you need continuing credit education or just want to get some information, this is a great place to come and learn. You do get credit hours and it is free. And also we serve a lunch as well if you come to the in-person one. This one, unfortunately, is all virtual, but we do have a hybrid CE for CPAs. So we have actually never done this class before. It's a brand new class. So just like for the other one was for realtors, this one is for CPAs. If you need CPE credits, we now provide a class for you guys. So this is going to be hybrid. The in-person portion will be in our Houston office on March 2nd from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. or you can register online if you'd like to participate from home. And then this is probably one of the most exciting events that I'm looking forward to this quarter. We're bringing back our big sports events. So we've done March Madness in the past. Now we're doing Major League Investing, how to hit a home run deal. If you've attended this event in the past, you know how fun it is. We bring out guest speakers. We have our judges. This time it's going to be our umpire who will rate these case studies and see which one has the home run deal with audience participation as well. You guys will vote, kind of help us decide, and we'll see who our MVP player is for this event. So definitely come on out, learn how you can use your self-directed IRA, some creative strategies that these speakers are going to be sharing with us. Again, that one is free. It is a lunch event, but we will have some food, drinks, some kind of themed things as well. So you can get registered for that on our website. One of my last slides here, kind of running a little bit over, but if you'd ever like to, go back and rewatch these classes, you can do so on our YouTube and Facebook pages. But also, we encourage you to join us every Tuesday. Just like this class, we host them every week, and we also do them at the same time on Saturdays. So if you're busy during the week, no worries. We have one on the weekend as well. And if you're looking for just networking, not so much education, join us for our virtual networking happy hour. That one's going to be on the 4th Wednesday of every month. We have changed that up a little bit. It's no longer the 1st and 3rd, so do be aware of that change. It's now the 4th Wednesday of every month. So come out, network with us. You get to share your camera. If you have a deal or a service, you get that opportunity to kind of share that, have that platform. And then this is the last event before I'll let Joni come up. But we're very, very excited to announce that the Quest Expo, it is returning. It's going to be coming to Houston. But if you have come to the expos in the past, we have upwards of 500, 600 people at this event. It is the largest self-directed IRA conference in the nation. And this year we are bringing out a lot more speakers, new panels, fresh ideas, different vendors, just to really give you guys that full scope of everything of what it takes to be a real-time real estate investor and how to use your self-directed IRA. So if you'd like to get more information, feel free to scan this QR code. It takes you directly to a link where you can schedule your consultation. But if you want, you can chat with us online on our website here, or give us a call or send us an email. We're always available to talk to you guys. We love being a resource for you if you ever have any questions. So I am going to real quickly just introduce our speaker. We have Joni Wolfswinkel here with us today. Very new to our screen. We're really happy to have her. She's the CEO of Real Property Management Preferred and Albuquerque. She's co-founded the build-to-rent firm Texas Turnkey Properties and co-owns Mr. Reuter of Albuquerque with her husband. So you can tell she's got a lot of stuff going on her plate. She's an extremely well-versed businesswoman, but also very good in providing education. She loves to speak on her podcast, which is Inside the Wolf's Den. She's also written a book. So we're really, really excited to see what she has to share with us today on her webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and bring her up. And Joni, the floor is yours for about the next hour.
Well, thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm excited to be here today talking to you about property management, and I think that property management's a hot topic these days, and hopefully you can get a few tips out of this. And if you're self-managing your own property, or you are looking to hire a property management company, you should be able to take some best practices out of this today. So just a little bit about myself. You've kind of already touched on it. So my name is Joni Wolfswinkel. I am the CEO of Real Property Management Preferred and Real Property Management Albuquerque. Between the two markets, I manage just about 1,600 homes. I also am a co-owner of a company here in Houston, Texas called Texas Turnkey Properties. And basically what we do is we build new construction duplexes and single family homes, and then we sell them to investors across the country and internationally, and then we manage for the investors. So truly a hands-off approach to real estate investing, and that way our investors can do what they love, which is either they're professionals or out there buying properties. So I am a published author. I wrote my first book this year, The Choice is Yours, Balancing Success as a Wife, Mom, and Entrepreneur. So if you're interested in getting to know me more, then that book is available on Amazon. I was awarded the top 100 women of influence this year by Housing Wire magazine, so super honored about that. And I've been buying and selling real estate now for over 21 years. I did start at the early age of 19 years old. I actually, my husband and I actually wholesaled properties through college to kind of get us through college. Then we did a lot of fix and flips, which brought us to the property management and turnkey space. We had investors say, hey, we really want you to help us grow our portfolios. And so here we are today. So I bought and sold about 1,800 properties in my career. And I own 58 rental properties and commercial buildings in Houston and Albuquerque. So I think this is extremely important, especially if you're going to be hiring outside third-party property management company. You want somebody that knows what they're doing and also invest in real estate, right? You practice what you preach. And then, as Sarah mentioned, I'm the co-host of Inside the Wolf's Den, which is an entrepreneurial podcast. We talk real estate, investment strategies, mindset, and it's available on Spotify and also on YouTube as well as Apple. So be sure to check that out. But enough about me, and so we'll talk about property management. So whenever somebody asks me, hey, what do you do for a living? And I say, well, I own a property management company, and I help people manage their rental properties. And the response I typically get is, oh, so you collect rent, right? And so it's actually much more than just collecting rent. There's tons of moving parts in this business. We deal with tenant difficulties, repairs, code violations, late night calls, accidents, trust and accounting regulations. Most people don't know that we're regulated by the Real Estate Commission, and so we have to follow the laws. Collections and evictions, that's a hot topic right now, especially with the moratorium and the moratorium ending. There's landlord and tenant laws. and occasional drug vandalism and criminal activity. It's funny, I laugh because this weekend we had a leadership retreat, and I told my staff, hey, look, we are not going to be around, so we left somebody in charge, and we said, please don't bother us unless there's an actual fire. And what happens is we actually got a fire. So yes, we handle it all. It's not just collecting the rent. Okay. And some try to handle it themselves or hire a discount property manager to save money. And so these are some things that can happen. And this happens all the time. I get investors that come to me, say, you know, Joni, I got this tenant in the property. I, don't know what I was thinking. I didn't properly screen them. And now I need you to get them out. So it can lead to longer vacancies. Every day costs you. Lacks tenant qualifications, which we're going to get into detail about today, which they can damage your properties. You'll have collections, evictions, increased maintenance costs. I have investors that come to me all the time and says, look, I hired this vendor to do the work and they didn't complete the work and I paid them up front. What do I do? Well, now we have to, try to figure a way to get that vendor back out there. Most times they're not going to come back. And so now you just spent more money trying to hire another vendor to complete the work, right? So this is just experience that we've had dealing with vendors. Poor tenant retention. The number one mistake that I see investors make today is not budgeting enough for the maintenance. So as you know, with inflation, maintenance costs have gone up. And so the average, over the last year, they've gone up about 10% on average in maintenance costs. So, most investors don't think that they need to factor that all in there. And if they don't, then you get tenants that are not going to renew their leases. You get, low qualification standards, low service. And at the end of the day, it costs you more money to find a new tenant and to do the make ready and relist the property. So, and then legal actions, citations, and violations, lack of legal expertise. So all of this is what happens when you try to do it yourself or you hire a property management company that really doesn't have their systems and processes together. All right, so I'm going to back up real quick here. All right, so today we're actually going to be covering these 3 points. So how to properly screen your tenants. Number 2, how to prepare for natural disasters. I'm in Houston, Texas. I don't know where everybody else is from, but chances are you may go through a natural disaster at one point. So I'll be able to prepare you for that. And then if you are going to be hiring a third-party property management company, you will have some questions, and that way you're able to vet your property management company. Okay, so how many of you guys can agree with, for the best return on your investment, you need to properly screen your tenants, right? And this statement is accurate, because if you don't properly screen your tenants, then you can lead to all these things that's listed on here. But point is that it is extremely important to screen your tenants properly at the front end. If you don't, you're going to lead to eviction. You're going to lead to loss in rental income, vandalism and theft. It can lead to lawsuits and lead to fair housing claims. So earlier in my career, I made the mistake of going with my gut feeling. I know we all have these horror stories, right? And so I went with my gut feeling. I leased to, a single mom. She gave me this sob story that, she needed a place to rent. She didn't have the best credit score. She had a bunch of collections on her application. And so I just felt sorry for her. I had this gut feeling that said, hey, this was going to be a good tenant, right? And so, kid you not, she moves in, and after the first month, she stopped making her rent payment. So guys, we can't go off our gut feeling these days. We can't, I know a lot of us want to lease to family members and all that, but really, really you need to screen them properly, because it can cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. And at the end of the day, you hurt your return on investment. So keep that in mind. So let's get started with how to properly screen a tenant. So number one, know the 7 protected classes. And why is knowing the 7 protected classes so important? Well, number one, you can discriminate based on the 7 protected classes, right? And so they are race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, and national origin. I kid you not, I get investors all the time that call me up and say, Joni, I have a request and I don't want to lease to anyone with kids, right? And I can't do that. I mean, that is violating one of these 7 protected classes. So knowing these 7 protected classes and making sure that your third party property management company knows these, because you'll be surprised they don't. And if, there's any fair housing claims or lawsuits filed, guess what? They're dragging you into this as well. So making sure that your third party company knows these 7 protected classes is extremely important. Next up is verify income sources. And today, tenants are savvy as ever. About 1 to 2 applications that I receive a week, they're providing us fake check stubs. So our processors are like underwriters. They're looking for this to make sure that everything matches up. And so here are some things that could help and save you. Number one, you're going to ask for 3 months worth of check stubs, right? And so to make sure that they're not fake, you also want to have them submit 3 months worth of their bank statements as well. You want to make sure that the income matches up correctly. And then the last thing is calling the employer and a completed verification. This step, I see a lot of investors miss this step. And the reason why is because it takes longer to get an employee verification, or they're not answering their phone, whatever the case may be is. But yes, it might take you a little longer to get that, but do not skip this step, because the minute that you do and you get a tenant that is not qualified, again, you're stuck with that tenant, and it's very, very difficult right now to get them out. The next thing is check social media platforms. There is so much you can get off of social media these days. I know that I've had a few applications that put on their applications that they don't have pets, right? But then you look at their social media accounts and they have 5 animals in their home. Or I've had it where tenants are just bad mouthing their landlord, and I'm going to stick it to them and they're going to not see the end of this. And I've seen it before. And so that's a red flag right there, so always check social media platforms. You may not get anything off of it, but it's just an extra, for you to make sure that you're covering all your grounds. And then rental verifications. This is also something that you want to do. And the reason why I say complete rental verifications with the past 2 landlords is because the current landlord may be wanting to get the tenant out, right? I had a situation early on in my career where the landlord told us on paper that yes, the tenant is absolutely great and you should lease to this tenant. And so I said, great, everything checks out. This was the last piece of, information that I needed. And so we leased to the tenant, and we did our first 6-month inspection on the tenant, and the tenant was filthy. I mean, they were hoarders. They had stuff, to the ceilings. And I walked in there, I was gagging and throwing up, and it was just really, really bad. And so this was a perfect example of, the landlord wanted that tenant out. Had I done 2 or 3 past landlord verifications, I would have at least come to the conclusion that this probably is not a good tenant. So, keep that in mind. And the other thing you might want to do, you can't really do this on scale, but offer to pick up the tenant applications or to sign the lease documents at the tenant's residence. That way it allows you to get into the property and kind of see how the tenants are keeping up the property. So rental verifications are huge, and that's another big mistake that I see investors make, is just not going the extra mile to get that because they take longer. It doesn't matter if it takes 2 or 3 days, a week. That's better than putting somebody in there that's going to cost you in the long run. And then with that, we do a full credit check. So everybody 18 and over must fill out an application and get their credit checked. We do full criminal background. We look at sex offender, make sure they're not on that list. There's no foreclosures, no bankruptcies, collections, lawsuits, and of course doing a full background check as well. So these are all things that you want to look for, and have a checklist of these items. That way you're making sure that you're covering every part of the applicant. And the last thing I want to talk about regarding the screening process is pet screening. Now, we all know that in today's world, everybody has a pet, right? And not everybody's pet is bad. I mean, there's some good animals out there. And so you just want to take the extra precaution to screen the animals. So we have a third-party screening company. It's petscreening.com. So you might want to write that down. We are able to, we get a PAW score on all of our pets, just like we get a credit score. So, and what they're looking for is they're looking to make sure that the pets are, vaccinated, that they haven't, there's no reports of them biting anybody. And then also if this breed of animal is accepted by the insurance companies, which is huge, right? And then the last thing that why we like it so much is how many of you guys get applications that the applicant maybe has a emotional support animal or a service animal, right? And so there's only so much that myself as a property manager can ask them, because I don't want to be violating any fair housing laws, and you don't want to be violating any of those laws as well. And so this third-party company will actually make sure that it's a legitimate service or emotional support animal. They will also get doctor's notes to ensure that it is a legitimate one. And about 80% of the cases that we get that try to submit for emotional support animals, they actually go away because they can't provide this documentation. So again, it's just an extra layer of protection for you, because I mean, in today's world, you probably are going to get, you're probably going to get your property leased out quickly if you allow pets. But you just want to be cautious and make sure that you are allowing the right pet into your property. All right, and the next up is how to prepare for natural disasters and repair your rental property. So I'm in Houston, Texas. I've been in hurricanes. I've just recently, we had the Arctic freeze here in Houston. Where, last February we had about 350 busted pipes in Houston. And so I've been through this. And so over time, I've created some processes to help us and to prepare for these events. So hopefully some tips here will help you to prepare for the events. In the event that it does happen, most likely you will experience it at what time in your life if you own rental property. So how can you prepare for natural disasters? Number one, you want to study the area before you purchase. Something that I don't purchase in any of the flood zones. That's just me. You may be okay with purchasing in the flood zones, but you also want to make sure that you have the proper insurance in place for that. I get a lot of investors investing from other states, and they maybe use their insurance provider back home and say, you know what, I can get a better deal with my insurance guy here. But with that, when it comes down to it, they didn't get the proper insurance because they didn't factor in that there was we have hurricanes, or they didn't have the right wind coverage, whatever the case may be. So just make sure that you're getting the proper insurance. And then also, if you own rental property right now, I would look at your current insurance policy to make sure that you have everything that you need in that policy, because you don't want to come to a natural disaster and it happens and then you're stuck because you weren't covered. I've seen it over and over again. Every disaster that happens, I always see 1 or 2 investors that didn't have the proper coverage. And communication with the resident, that is key. We communicate with our residents before the storm, during the storm, and after the storm. So we want to prepare them as much as possible for this. And then, of course, winterizing the home, water your foundation in droughts, and secure your rental property before a hurricane. And these are just some tips on your vacant rentals or properties. And these are some things that you can, regardless of a natural disaster, some best practices that you can use in your business. Number one, program the thermostat, because we have vendors that go into our properties all the time. And what do? They, lower the temperature in the home, and then you have, AC units that are freezing. So just program the thermostats. It's important that you do that. Turn off the water. So after even a rehab, if you just completed a rehab, you might want to turn off the water because you don't want disaster to happen while you're away and then your fully rehab property is just damaged again. Okay, check at least once a week. So always have somebody check on the properties just to make sure that everything is the way you left it and there's no issues. Leaving a business card with a neighbor, this is huge. And I started doing this early on in my career. And I kid you not, your neighbors will call you and let you know what's going on. I've had instances where, my AC unit was being stolen at a property, and my neighbor, because she had my business card, calls me in the middle of the night and warns me of what was going on. So again, leave a business card with your neighbor. That's huge. And then, of course, AC cages and lock gates. Install alarms. Something that we do on all of our new construction properties is we install alarms, and that way just an extra layer of protection there. And rekey after vendors is another great practice. So I did mention this before, so communicate prior, during, and after events with residents. This is huge, whether sending emails, text messages, phone calls. I do a lot of video messages and kind of giving them details on how to prepare for it. Communicate while you're going through an event and check on safety and provide assistance. So, if you have numbers such as the Red Cross, those type of assistance, be sure to give those to your tenants. Have vendors ready and use loyal vendors. This is huge. And this is something, the great takeaway that I took from the last event is, having those vendors ready and prepared to assess your properties. And then start with the dry out and clean up process, plumbing and electrical and sheetrock work. And of course, you might need to relocate the tenants to another vacant unit if possible. Or if this is your first rental property, maybe, offer to get them a hotel for a few nights until we can get the property habitable again. So, and then just be sympathetic to the resident and their situation. They may be yelling and screaming and cussing at you, but at the end of the day, they're going through a lot, and so we want to show empathy to the tenant as well. All right, and then after the storm, now it's time to repair your rental property. And so here are some things that you can take away. So number one, you want to assess the damage and just make sure you have a checklist, interior checklist and exterior checklist to check everything, to make sure you're not missing anything. Take a lot of photos, and this is something that you can do before the natural disaster as well. So take before pictures, and you want to take after pictures as well. That way you have proper documentation when you're filing an insurance claim. You just want to make sure that you document everything, especially if you start the work before you actually get the insurance to pay out. I know that in the last event with the Arctic freeze, insurance companies were backed up, and so we couldn't get them moving quick enough. And so we documented everything, and we went ahead and start to work on the home with cleaning it out, drying it out, demo, because we want to get that habitable as quickly as possible, because again, time is money. We want to get the property repaired, and so we can either get a new tenant if the tenant moved out, or we can get the property back in order for the existing tenant. And so these are just some things that you can put in your checklist when you are assessing your property. So some takeaways from the past weather-related events: prepare for no water or electric for long periods of time. This is something that I wish we would have prepared our tenants for. Having a generator or more bottled water in preparation would be a good thing. Shut off water and drain lines in the house earlier. So, when you're prepping your tenants, this is something that you want to make sure that you're communicating, and you want to communicate where actually the shutoff valve is. So when you're leasing the property, something that I do is we walk the property with our tenants and we show them where the shutoff valves are. And we let them know, hey, if there's an emergency, this is where you shut off the water. They will remember that. So make sure you mention that, because when disaster strikes, they are going to be panicking and they're going to be calling you all hours of the night, and you might not even be able to get to the property. Say, there's road conditions or whatnot. So try to prepare them ahead of time, and having a storm protocol is probably should be given to the tenants at the start of them moving into the property. And then more vendors. You can never have enough vendors. I know that was a tough time during the Arctic freeze here in Houston, where you couldn't find a vendor, and so always have a vendors in your database that you can call. And storage of materials. I know that there was plumbing shortages here in Houston for materials, and so we actually, luckily, we owned a plumbing company in New Mexico. We actually were able to get our plumbing company out here and get them to bring their materials with them. So, and the last advice that I would give is, so we actually have remote team members in our business, and so a lot of you may be familiar with virtual assistants, and so they actually helped managing over 1,600 homes. It's a lot, and you get a lot of tenant calls, owner calls. They want to know what's going on with their properties, and so our virtual assistants really helped us. We have 18 of them, and when we didn't have electric, they're the ones that were answering the phones and being there for our tenants to help them through the situation. So. And the third thing I want to talk about is hiring the right property management company. So these are, some questions that will help you when you're vetting a property management company, and make sure that you're hiring the best fit for your rental properties. So questions asked before hiring a property management company: how do they vet and screen their potential tenants? So they should be going over the list of things that I went over early on, checking for rental verifications, income verifications, employment verifications, pet screening, all these things that they should have. How do they collect rent? So do they physically actually go to the property and collect rent, or do they have a platform and where the tenants can actually pay their rent online? I know another thing that we have is, we still have a lot of tenants that like to submit their checks, and we don't take checks anymore, and so we're 100% electronic. So we have coupons, and where our tenants can actually go to an Ace Cash Express or a Walmart, and just like utility bill, they scan the code and they can pay cash or check with that, and so it automatically goes into our account. So you want to make sure that they have stuff available like that for the tenants to pay their rent. How do they manage repairs and maintenance? So do they use in-house maintenance, or do they use do they outsource their maintenance? And a good question to ask is, how long does a make-ready turnaround time? What's the make-ready turnaround time? And how much does it cost on average to do a make-ready? So all these things you want to consider. How do they fill vacancies? So do they just put a sign in the yard, or do they actually market on the multiple listing service? Do they market on all the other different rental websites out there to capture all the potential applicants out there? And how do they vet their vendors? This is a great question here, because at the end of the day, you want vendors that actually know what they're doing. You want vendors that are licensed, insured, bonded. If anything were to happen, if they ever were to do something wrong, we can come back to them, and so that way they can redo the work, right? How do they communicate with their owners? So are they, all about technology and not really using any human touch? I think in today's world, yeah, you utilize technology, but that's not the end all be all, right? You want to have some personal touch. Something that we do is we have our customer service advisors were responsible to make sure that the owners are touched, once a month, to make sure that they don't have questions, they don't have concerns, really to be proactive versus reactive. The number one question that I get from investors when they call in is they say, you know what, I'm looking to hire another property management company because of the lack of communication that I received from my prior management company. So that's probably the number one reason why investors switch from one property management company to the other, is just the lack of communication. So you want to find out how they communicate with you, because you want to be proactive versus reactive. And then how do they leverage their use of management technology? So again, technologies is important in today's world. And so you want to make sure that, your owner statements are at your fingertips, your inspection reports are at your fingertips. How do they communicate with their tenants? And all these questions you want to ask. And then you also want to make sure that, the property management company has processes and procedures, and that they've been tested. So, and even if you're self-managing your property, make sure that you have these processes and procedures in place, because it's not a matter of if, it's when it happens. You want to make sure that you have your eviction process down. You want to make sure that you have your screening process down, your make-ready process, your move-out process, inspection process, all of this. And then, of course, if you hire a third-party company, it shields the liability from the property owner, because, again, there's a lot of moving parts in this business, and it just opens you up more for liability if you do anything incorrectly. Handle day-to-day operations. So we do that. We're the local experts, so we're boots on the ground. We're not just a technology company. Yeah, we have technology to help us, with the management of your property, but we are actually boots on the ground here managing your property. And then know the laws on the eviction moratorium. I can't stress this enough, but in today's world, the eviction moratorium, now that it's ended, you're going to see a lot of delays in the courts. And so, you just want to make sure that you know the laws and rules, and, and that your property management company does as well, and they're familiar with all of that. So that's it for my presentation. This is my information here. If you have any additional questions regarding property management, or want more information about the build to rent, and maybe some tips and tricks there, I'm happy to help. And so I'll give that back to you. And we are going to have a question and answer session.
Yes, we do have some questions here. Thank you for that presentation. So we have Stephen, who has said, what is the cost per square foot to build a duplex?
So obviously the costs have gone up, the last year or so. But so we've actually, we're building right now probably about 85 a square foot. And so that's kind of what it's been right now. But hopefully we can get that a little down. Right now our duplexes are going for about $336,000.
Okay, perfect. So we have another question here. Is it harder to evict now or before?
It's definitely harder to evict now. So the eviction moratorium is now ended, but it has caused chaos within the courts right now. And so on average, it's actually taking us about 2 to 3 months just to get a court date, where before, Texas has always been landlord friendly, so it's taken us only 30 days to not only file eviction, but also to get the tenant out, where it's a little longer now. So that's why it's important, that you screen your potential tenants properly, because you do not want to be stuck several months out without having to, evict a tenant. So I get investors every day that come to me and say, hey, Joni, I have this problem. How do I fix it? So we actually created a landlord rescue program for them. And so because it happens, and so we help them through that. We do a lot of cash for keys because, again, time is money. And so it's better for us to try to get these tenants out than to wait on an eviction day.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. We have this one is affiliation protected class.
So I'm not quite sure what that question is related to, but affiliation, I mean, if you're affiliated, with another, just disclosure is the biggest thing I can say. As long as you're disclosing the affiliation, then, that's what's important.
Perfect. Just real quick, Maxine asks, what's the name of that pet screening company that you used?
So it is easy. It's petscreening.com.
Put that in the comments here for everyone, petscreening.com.
And it is awesome. We started using that about 2 years ago. I don't know a lot of other companies that are using it. But yeah, it's super helpful because everyone has a pet nowadays.
Perfect. We do have a question here about your contact information. I'm going to save that for the end. Kind of on the line of screening here. Is your screening criteria on low-end rentals a little more lax than higher-end rentals?
And so our screening criteria is actually about the same. So it's over a 600 credit score is what we ask for. However, yes, you're going to get that on the lower rentals. And so what we do is we give the investor the recommendation if we don't feel that that is the right fit. A lot of times, like here in Texas, we can actually ask for an extra security deposit. And so if we find that the tenant is, maybe a little low on their credit score, but everything checks out, maybe we can ask him for an additional deposit for that. But we ultimately leave it up to the investor. We'll give you the recommendation if it doesn't meet our high qualifications.
Perfect. So this is a little longer. Do you guys work with realtor investors? He's a realtor and an investor, and how does he list his own rentals and work with you guys at the same time?
Great question, Joseph. So yes, we do actually have a realtor referral program. So we work with realtors, and so if you have an investor that you helped purchase a property and they need a management company, we'll manage it for them. You get a referral fee, obviously. And what's cool is that once that investor is ready to sell, then we actually will give that listing back to you, so you can list it and sell it. And your question is if you can actually list it on the front end as a lease property. Yes. And something that I do that not a lot of property management companies do is I will actually work with you. So because a lot of realtors don't have the capability of screening the tenants, so rather than putting a bad tenant in there, right, then I will do the screening for you, and we'll work together to make sure that we get the best qualified tenant, because at the end of the day, that's what matters.
These are great answers, and these questions are just flooding in. I love it. Sometimes it's hit or miss. That's really good. So I'm just going to keep going through the list here.
Okay.
Tim asks, what's a reasonable fee, percent of rent for property management services?
So good question. So we actually, and I'll kind of give you what we do. So we have 3 different plan options depending on the investor and what they're comfortable with at the end of the day. So we have our standard plan. And so our standard plan is the basic, management, where we collect rent, we handle the maintenance, all the day-to-day that has to do with management. That's 7.9%. And then we actually have our premium plan, which is it covers eviction protection. So if we have to evict the tenant, we will cover the cost of the eviction on that plan. And it also offers tenant placement guarantees. So say that the tenant moves out early, within their lease agreement, we will actually replace that tenant for free if you're on that plan, and that's 9.9%. And then we actually have our platinum plan, which is one step further, and that's typically for, maybe first-time investors that have never done this before. They want to make sure that they have all their ducks lined down there, nothing's going to happen. So it includes the same as the premium. The only other thing it includes is it offers landlord rent default insurance. And basically what that is if the tenant stops making rent payments for 2 to 3 months, we will pay the rent payments for that amount of time. So again, it depends on the investor's needs, and that's something that you want to look for when you're hiring a third-party property management company, is what guarantees do they offer.
Okay, perfect. We've got a question here from Mary. What is the company that you use that allows you to have tenants pay at Walmart?
So
the account.
So the property management software that we use is Appfolio, and Appfolio actually has the capability of the tenants to pay through Ace Cash Express. And so they get a little coupon and they go to Ace and they just pay with the Ace coupon, and it goes automatically to their account. So turnaround time is probably, a day.
Awesome. Okay, we've got a question here from Doug. Everyone always seems to complain about property management companies. Why is it so hard to find a quality property management company? And what makes your company better and different? Excuse me.
So yeah, and the answer to that question, Doug, is yes. I think a lot of people, complain about that, and what I see is a lot of property management companies don't focus on customer service, right? And it's a low margin business, so they don't typically have the staff to help them, and so it's hard when you have a ton of moving parts in this business. You feel like you're putting out a fire every 2 seconds, right? I have a team of 50. So I have, a maintenance department, a leasing department, renewals department, and then we have our customer service advisors that are just, responsible for contacting the owners and the owner's advocate. So the answer to your question is they don't know enough about it, and they don't have big enough teams to handle it. And what makes us better, I feel that I'm an investor myself, so I understand, because I manage my own rental property, so I can see what my team does. And if I don't like it, then I'm going to change what I'm doing, because, I want to make sure that it appeals to other investors out there as well.
Great answer. I love that. A couple more here. Dino has another one. How do you assess a duplex cost for property management? Is it like 2 residences, or is there a discount? How does that work?
It is 2 residents, so good question there. So we have a lot of investors that are taking advantage of it because of the low interest rates, are actually able to get a duplex for 1 loan, so they get 2 units. The average rents typically on those are about $13.95 per side. And so same thing, we manage property on collected rent. So depending on what plan option you get is how it's calculated.
Perfect. Got a question here about Airbnbs. Do you manage Airbnbs in Texas, and what's an appropriate management fee?
Yeah, so Airbnbs are different. I actually started off managing my own Airbnb property and found that there's a lot that goes into that as well. And so it doesn't really fit our model. We basically help investors with their regular single family and obviously multifamily. But to answer your question, typically the Airbnbs are a little bit more. I've found anywhere from 12 to 15%. Only because they offer the cleaning the property once they vacate, and the quick turnaround times, all of that. So that's what you can expect.
Perfect. Tamika asks, with preparing for the bad weather as an investor, should I rehab adding generators to the property, or just having some on standby?
Having some on standby, because if you have if you put one in there, it actually is pretty expensive. So we have some on standby. That way, if tenants need them, we can just drop them off. The same thing with AC, portable AC units. So have those available. We actually drop those off to tenants when their AC goes out as well.
Okay, we've got our last question here. Do you offer consultations for building a PM company?
I would be open to it, of course. Yeah, I actually get that, being in this industry over 20 years, I know some things, so for sure.
Awesome. I'm just going to put this last question up here. If you wouldn't mind just typing in your contact information once again, or if you want to pull your screen up so they can get that, we would love to have that here so that they can contact
Sure.
you. It seems like we've got a couple of people here that really want to get some more information from you and reach out. So this is the email address for you guys.
And that is my direct contact number as well.
Perfect. So there's the email. I'm going to stick the phone number up here too in just a second afterwards, once you guys get a second to write that down. But Joni, thank you so much for joining us. This has been a really great class. I know I actually learned something. I was telling some of our other marketing ladies that we are definitely going to have to bring you back out because it was a lot of fresh content, some things that we'd never, thought about. So thank you for joining us. And, if you have any last, words for everyone, feel free to share.
Yeah, no, thank you, Sarah, for having me today. It's been an honor to teach this class, and there's a lot more that I can go into with property management. But if you have questions, then feel free to reach out to me. I'd happy to help you in any way I can.
Awesome. Just threw those back up there one last time. But thank you, everybody, for joining us. If you would like to get registered for all of our other free webinars, just like this one, or some of those other exciting events, I do have the link up above. Be sure to go to our website and see what else we have coming up. But thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.
See ya.